And we are live with another edition. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson, and for this week's episode of the show, Sean Mulligan, as we get ready for kickoff, boys. Tomorrow night in Kansas City, the first game of the NFL season will happen between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch of last year's AFC Championship. The Chiefs obviously are going for a three-peat this season, so that'll be something that we break down a little bit later on in the show. But guys, football is back, and I know you both are very excited to hear those words as we get ready for this 2024-2025 season.
Yeah, we're very excited to have Sean back on the show. Always a welcome guest giving us timely insights. So, Sean, first and foremost, thank you for coming back, and we're happy to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I love being on the show with you guys, and I love talking football. And I've been waiting for the magic words heard every Sunday at 1 o'clock, and I cannot wait to hear them again this year. I've been waiting for this for it seems like an eternity, but I've been waiting to hear 7 hours of commercial-free football.
Scott Hans will be ready on Sunday for the first kickoff at 1 o'clock. But as I mentioned, we do have two games before that, guys, as well. We have a Thursday night game tomorrow night as of this recording, and, of course, a first ever game in Brazil that will be happening on Friday night. So a lot more football than we're usually expecting before we get to Sunday.
I do want to say for one thing, Sean, and you grew up in a time, and I guess we did too, before there was football on every single day of the week, especially during the holidays.
Yes.
Like at some point, it's on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yes.
Does that the allure of the NFL was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 10, 15 years ago, that it was only on once, maybe twice a week. Monday night, they had Monday Night Football, they had Sunday Night Football.
Yes.
And the allure was you had to stay home during those days. Now it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to watch Sunday Night Football, but I'll catch the Thursday night game, or in this case, it's a Friday night game, a Saturday afternoon game, whatever it is. It just seems like that allure is running out.
100%. I loved waking up on Thanksgiving, knowing, as a kid, knowing that, oh, wow, I get two extra games, I get two games today, and then I always looked forward to December after college football was over, because you always got a couple of, the last 2 weeks of the season, you got some Saturday games, and wow, this is really cool. But I would say adding these games in on Thursday and Friday and whatever, it has kind of watered down the product in terms of, I could get this anytime. It's going to be on Monday through Friday. It's going to be on 7 days a week, rather. So it's kind of muddied the waters in that respect. But I'm a football fan, as you know. I love everything about it. I love the sights, the sounds, the taste, the smell. I love everything about football. So for me, I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I mean, no, just disagree with that in terms of loving the game and loving the sport itself. I mean, Johnson and I just yesterday were talking about college football, and we recapped week number one, previewed week number two, and now after all that, now we finally get into the NFL, which we haven't talked about since the NFL draft. So it has been a little bit of time since we have spoken about the NFL. Obviously, a lot of movement has been made in terms of free agency, the draft itself, and obviously player cuts during training camp. So a lot to discuss here on the show today. And while we discuss all these teams' transactions, we'll be giving everyone our picks to win respective divisions. And as well, at the end, we'll be making our MVP pick. And of course, our teams to make the Super Bowl and of course, win the Super Bowl at the end of the season. So a lot to look forward to. And guys, I think we should start this one off with the AFC East, division that Dare might say might be one of the best in football. I mean, you have really good contending teams this year, teams like the Bills, the Jets. We'll see where they are with Aaron Rodgers this upcoming season. And who knows what's going to happen with the Dolphins. They had a lot of transactions in the offseason that might be in a scenario where they might be a good team. They might be more of a struggling team that they were compared to last season. And for the Patriots, at least in their stake, they're going to be in a rebuilding phase. But who knows what happens if Drake May at one point starts the season. And if he starts the ball out, then the Patriots have found their next quarterback of the future. So a lot to look forward to in this division. We'll start off with what the Bills have done in the offseason. Obviously, they lost Gabe Davis to free agency. You traded away Stephon Diggs to the Texans. You lost Leonard Floyd in the offseason to the San Francisco 49ers. Tre'Davious White, they also cut in the offseason. He went to the Rams. They cut Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. So a lot of transactions for them in terms of them losing players in the offseason. And that was due, in fact, to all cap issues. Now, the flip side of things, they were able to add receivers like Curtis Samuel, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, La'el Collins for the offensive line. They re-signed Deion Dawkins as well. And then in the draft, we saw them draft Keon Coleman in the second round with the first pick, who a lot of people have been clamoring about. They think that he's going to be the next big wide receiver in that team. And, you already have guys like Dalton Kincaid returning back. You're hoping that James Cook takes another big step after a very strong 2023-24 season last year for the Bills. So they have a lot to look forward to going into this upcoming season as they try to once again win this AFC East crown. And then, yeah, go ahead. If you want to make a comment.
I was gonna say, we're talking about the Bills, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't really say much because
Bills.
my team is really, really bad, and by really, really bad, I mean this is probably the first season in my lifetime that we're not expected to do anything, like not even make the playoffs, which is crazy to think about.
It's a rebuilding
However,
stage, man.
with that being said, I think the Bills will still make the playoffs and be second in the division. That's my spoiler.
Okay, so we'll have to see who you pick for this division once we get to the end of it. The next team I'll go
Yeah,
into
no,
is the Miami Dolphins, and go for it, Sean.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that's. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that, but we'll come up with that later. But yeah, this is one of those years. I mean, it's like for me, it's like being a kid again, essentially, because the Patriots were trash when I was growing up. So this is a throwback to me being a kid, where the Bills are
Hey,
ruling a
they were
roost.
decent in the '90s for a couple of years.
And they had that one Super Bowl.
They
Yeah,
won. Yes.
all it takes is one. All it takes is one.
Yeah, and they got smacked.
Yeah,
You know
Desmond
what?
Howard
Things happen.
Desmond Howard and Brett Favre did do some bad things in that Super Bowl.
Yes, they went off.
And then we'll see what the Bills do. We'll see how everyone picks where they have them making the playoffs or not when we get to the division winners. We'll go into the next team, the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, they were also a team that this past offseason had a lot of cap issues that they need to deal with. They lost big guys like Christian Wilkins, Andrew Van Ginkel, Raekwon Davis, Jerome Baker for that, Deshaun Elliott, Brandon Jones. That's just all on the defensive side of the ball. And then obviously they lost Robert Hunt and Connor Williams for their offensive line. So a lot of transactions for the Miami Dolphins for that reasoning for departures. They were able to re-sign Raheem Mostert. They did bring in Odell Beckham. They gave Jalen Waddle a new contract extension, and of course gave Tua Tagovailoa a contract extension. They also signed Jordan Poyer, Marcus May for their secondary, as well as bringing in guys like Jordan Brooks and Anthony Walker for their linebacking core, and then of course signed Calais Campbell and Deshaun Hand for the defensive line. So the Dolphins going a little bit more Moneyball, I guess, type of scenario for this season in terms of bringing in some of these guys, trying to fix, and replace some of the guys that they lost in the offseason due to the fact that they couldn't repay them. And they still have on paper one of the best offenses in all of football. Obviously, bringing back Devon Achane. Most of that I mentioned is coming back. You obviously have Tyreek Hill, Waddle, and now once Odell Beckham is healthy, he'll be your number 3 wide receiver in that offense. And their offensive line is still good enough to get them some wins. They did draft Patrick Paul, the offensive tackle from Houston, in the second round. They brought in Chop Robinson for the defensive line once, they get back Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb from injury. And they also got Jalen Wright, the running back out of Tennessee, who a lot of people have been clamoring about, could be the next big running back for them to be the dual-headed threat with Achane, maybe even going into the end of this season, early next season. So the Dolphins definitely have made their moves that they're hoping at least will get them in good position. But as we all know, guys, once December hits, that's going to be the story of where the Dolphins season is going to be as this one goes along, as they try to get back into the postseason after a disappointing playoff berth loss to the Kansas City Chiefs.
I also have no comments on the Dolphins because this is my division rival.
Well, let's go into your team, Johnson, unless Sean has a comment before I go into the New England Patriots.
No, not for Miami, at least. I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay. We'll go into the New England Patriots. Johnson, definitely an interesting offseason, that's to say the least. Obviously, Bill Belichick is no longer with the team. They have a new head coach in Gerard Mayo. They traded away Mac Jones, so that experiment has gone and passed. They got rid of Ezekiel Elliott. Devontae Parker retired. They lost Mike Gesicki, Trent Brown, as well as some of their secondary guys like J.C. Jackson, Jalen Mills, Matthew Slater, of course, also retired. So a lot of departures for this team in the offseason. They did, however, did make some good quality moves as well. They signed Jacoby Brissett to be their new starting quarterback, at least for the time being. He'll be the starting quarterback for the Patriots going into week number 1. They also brought in Antonio Gibson. They re-signed Ramondre Stevenson. They re-signed Kendrick Bourne.
Oh
They
man,
signed
you're
KJ
missing some.
Osborne.
You are missing something that happened on August 15th that made me realize the direction of this team was completely different. Because
Matthew Judon.
I even believed in this team up until that happened. When
Yeah,
that
Matthew
happened, I
Judon was traded to
realized,
the Falcons.
okay, I can no longer believe in this team when you trade Judon.
Yeah, another scenario where contract kind of play into a factor. I think the Patriots just didn't want to give him the contract extension that he was hoping for. So that's
Yeah.
one of the scenarios where he goes to the Falcons now, and he's going to hopefully not only help the Falcons try to make the playoffs, but maybe get a contract extension as well in the process being. Um, so there was also that with the team, and then of course they also re-signed back Josh Uche or Josh Uche, however you pronounce it. Kyle Duggar they brought back. They did sign Christian Barmore to an extension, but he is out to start the season due to I think it was blood clots, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so that's a tough break for the Patriots defensive line. But as I mentioned, it's a whole rebuilding year for New England. Obviously, with all these moves happening in the offseason, as I mentioned, you drafted Drake May, Jalen Polk in the second round, the wide receiver out of Washington, who I think will be a nice addition for that offense. But yeah, it's just a rebuilding year for New England. Not a lot of people are high on them this season. I can understand why, but you're just hoping to see what Drake May gives you because eventually he's probably going to start at some point for you this season. It's going to come down to will he be good enough to be your future starting quarterback, or are you going to be in the scenario where you were just a couple years, just as this past season where Mac Jones unfortunately just got thrown to the wolves and had to get benched for Bailey Zappi. So who knows what New England's going to be this season? Do you have any comments about them, Johnson, before we move on to the final team?
I will be taking Travis Hunter number 1 overall in the NFL draft at the end of this season. I'm looking forward to it. Over under 3.5 wins.
Uh, yeah, it honestly, I would love to know what their actual win loss total is for the season, but that might be very accurate for them this upcoming season. Any comments, Sean, before I move on to the final AFC team?
Yeah, my only comment is something that I've said on the show multiple times and it fits really well in this scenario here. If you're not really expecting to blow the doors off the rest of not only the league but your division, I think it'd be pertinent for them to sit Drake May as long as they can. I'm a big believer in sitting a rookie quarterback and letting him develop, especially. I'm not saying that Jacoby Brissett is a guy who's, all pro,
He's a
all
good draft.
world, all this. He's a very good backup. He's a solid backup. He played in New England, obviously, with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and all that. So he has that kind of caliber to him. He knows what he's doing. So if you ask me, if you're not really expecting much out of this season, hold Drake May as long as you can. That would make a hell of a lot of sense,
Oh,
especially here.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I do not want to see Drake May start one game this season. I want to see him on the bench the entire year. Uh, there's absolutely no reason why he should even be in this conversation. Why he should be even no, he should not be anywhere near starting for this team.
Yes, yes. I think that's the one thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's the one thing that hurt Mac Jones. I think if he had sat, maybe things might have turned differently. Maybe things wouldn't have. Who
Or
knows?
or they just had
I'm
a
a
better
big fan of sitting quarterbacks for a year.
or if they just had a better offensive line,
Yes,
that would
yes,
probably help too.
Yeah, but that offensive line pretty much destroyed all his confidence.
Yeah,
He's looked better in
absolutely.
Jacksonville, at least in training camp.
yeah.
Hey, listen, but it's only really an extension of the underwear Olympics.
Well, on that note, I'll move on to the final team in the AFCs, that being the New York Jets. Interesting offseason for them as well. You lost guys like John Franklin Myers. They lost Bryce Huff, Laken Tomlinson, Mekhi Becton, even though Becton was really on the field all often. Zach Wilson was traded to the Broncos, so that experiment definitely went and gone. Did not work out for the Jets whatsoever. They were hoping he wasn't going to be starting last season, but the Aaron Rodgers injury 4 plays into the season unfortunately brought that a halt. So what the Jets did to make sure, in case Rodgers does get hurt, is they did bring in a veteran backup like Tyrod Taylor, who I thought was a nice signing for this Jets squad. They brought in Mike Williams from the Chargers, John Simpson and Morgan Moses, as well as Tyron Smith for their offensive line. They did trade for Hassan Reddick from the Eagles, but they still have not figured out that contract situation, which has been a glaring problem, as it looks like he most likely will not be playing Monday night against the 49ers. So a rough go of things for the Jets, considering that they traded a conditional 2026 third round pick that could be a second round pick in 2026. And then, other than that, they brought guys back like Chuck Clark and Ashton Davis for their secondary, and they brought back Solomon Thomas and signed Javon Kinlaw for the defensive line. So the main goal for the Jets this season is make sure Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, and if that is the case, and if he's at least a serviceable amount of good quarterback for them, the Jets could be a contention for not only a playoff spot, but maybe even a division title.
A
Uh,
division title for the New York Jets, huh?
Well,
mhm.
yeah, think about it also. I forgot to also mention in the draft, they added guys like Olu Fashanu, the offensive tackle from Penn State, Malachi Corley, they've talked a lot about from training camp, as well as Braylon Allen, the running back out of Wisconsin. The Jets are in a good position. Listen, I think if there's any year that they could win the division title, it could be possibly this season.
I've seen a lot of mixed bag with people talking about the Jets or whatever. There's people that have them going to the Super Bowl, which I think is
Yeah.
absolutely insane.
I mean, everyone's looking for the Matt Stafford, not Lions, Rams route from a couple of years ago.
100%. I'm not sure if it's this team. I'm not fully. Again, this is not coming from a Jets fan. I'm not fully convinced that Robert Saleh is the guy. But who knows? Coaches have won Super Bowls with less. Um, but I do personally want to take credit for mushing Aaron Rodgers last year. Although, however, I didn't think it would be 4 plays into the season. But I do want to take credit on mushing Aaron Rodgers last season.
It happens a lot. I mean, I picked the Jets to win the division last year, the mushing hour, and 4 plays in, the season was over.
I'm not sure. I might have two. I don't remember.
I don't think you did. I think everyone took Buffalo besides me, so I was trying to not mush
I
the
also
Bills
took.
for that happening.
I think I took the Patriots again. I'm pretty sure that's
No,
what I
I
did.
think you took Buffalo. I don't think you did.
I actually did take Buffalo. Wow, look at me.
I think you took Buffalo. I can double check while we make our picks.
Yeah.
Now,
We can. Let's move on.
you took Buffalo.
Oh,
Yeah,
what the hell is wrong with you last year, Johnson?
I don't know.
Johnson, I look at it right now. Johnson had the least amount of correct picks for division winners last season.
Yeah,
very
that
good.
checks out.
But I was not far behind you with 3. So I wasn't far behind. I picked the Panthers to win the NFC South. That's just how bad it was.
God.
Well, could be worse, I
Oh,
guess.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. So be that as it may, folks, take these picks with a grain of salt when we pick these
Except
division
mine.
winners.
Mine are gospel.
Going for
Apparently.
the 2-pick winner of himself. Who do you guys have winning the AFCs this year?
Jets,
Wow.
Jets, because I'm gonna get it wrong and it's gonna mush them. So
Okay.
I'm gonna run it back like I did last year. I got the Bills again. It's one of those situations where you got to prove me wrong. They've now it's in a weaker division technically, but they've been ruling the division the last couple of years. So to me, it's their division, and someone else has to take it from them.
Yeah, I think it's really kind of a proven year for the Bills because obviously losing all that talent in the offseason, a lot of people are kind of sleeping on them to win the division again. And that's why kind of Josh Allen's been like that, quintessential like MVP like sleeper pick because, and it sounds weird to say him as a sleeper pick, but it's more the fact that, we don't know who the number 1 wide receiver is for this team going into this season. Dalton Kincaid probably is the guy that Josh Allen will rely on a lot through the passing game, at least for the start of the season. And then James Cook's probably going to have a good amount of rushing attacks. While we'll see how many rushing touchdowns Josh Allen provides as well for that team.
I,
So the
I
Bills are in
think
a weird year for sure.
I think having a quarterback is what saves this team. Josh Allen saves this team in terms of picks, in terms of projection, because I think about it in contrast to the Giants. I kind of feel like minus Josh Allen, minus Daniel Jones, you remove the quarterback position for both the teams. I feel like both of the Giants and the Bills are essentially the same team,
At least
with the
this year.
exception of Josh Allen. And I'm talking about this year, with the
Yeah.
exception of Josh Allen. Josh Allen is what elevates this team to winning this division.
And be that as it may, I'm probably going to upset some feathers with this pick, for at least for my Buffalo brethren. But I'm going to go with the Jets as well to win this division. I
Ugh.
think, I think it's just again I picked them last year and it didn't work out for them. So maybe Johnson and I both picking them probably is not a good sight for the Jets faithful. I do have the Jets winning. I think Rodgers will be coming back. I think he'll be serviceable enough, even if he doesn't look strong like the old Aaron Rodgers that we know. It'd still be good enough to win the AFC. So I do have the Jets winning this division and getting a home playoff game, which I mean they haven't been in a playoff game in general since 2010. So it has been a long time coming for the Jets, and maybe this is the year they finally get it over the hump.
Yuck.
But
Um,
probably won't be the case.
yeah, most likely for their sake. We'll have to say. Let's move on to the AFC North. We'll start off with, of course, the defending AFC North champion Baltimore Ravens. Uh, some big guys they lost in the offseason. They lost J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Odell, Morgan Moses, Devin Duvernay, John Simpson, Jadeveon Clowney, Patrick Queen, Geno Stone, and corners like Ronald Darby and Rocky Sin. I just like saying Rocky Sin. He's not really a big important player for them, but I just love saying that name. It's so funny. For their offense, for their additions, though, a very good offseason they had. Of course, the biggest one being Derrick Henry. Adding him to that running attack with Lamar Jackson is going to be huge. They also brought in Deontay Hardy from the Buffalo Bills. Kyle Van Noy was signed to a 2-year deal. They brought back Justin Matabuki, who I think got a name change. I just saw, I think today or yesterday. I don't know what it was though, so I'm not going to really look forward into that. Um, so a lot of good additions for the Ravens, and of course in the draft we saw them get Nate Wiggins, the quarter out of Clemson. So trying to add to that secondary as well, a secondary that is supposed to be maybe one of the best in the National Football League. So Baltimore trying to go for another division title this upcoming season, but we'll have to see how Lamar Jackson now and company will handle this obviously big addition in them getting a guy like Derrick Henry for that offense. And
Yeah,
then
I really did like the signing of Derrick Henry. He's a guy, honestly, that I really wish that the Giants had pursued. Um, I kind of felt he had well, not that I feel that he does. He does have that Brandon Jacobs kind of feel to him. Um,
in a
but
better
yeah,
sense.
he is, to me, if this is if any time for the Baltimore Ravens to get to the Super Bowl and potentially win the Super Bowl, or at least knock off the Kansas City Chiefs, I think this is the time. I think they've set themselves up. This is it, to me, in Baltimore. It's now or never. If they
As
don't
long as
if they
they
don't
run
get
the
over
football,
it this year, I think that's it.
as long as they run the football in the actual playoff game, because that's the reason why they lost the
Uh,
Chiefs. They did not run the football. That's,
well,
that's exactly
well,
why they lost. They didn't run the football, and of course, Zay Flowers had that big fumble. That was, of course,
yeah,
two
yeah, that's
a
it.
couple of reasons. Um,
That's it.
Moving on to the next team, that being the Cincinnati Bengals. Of course, the biggest addition they can have is getting Joe Burrow back because he's coming back from that injury last season, and we saw what happened after that. He went down. They did their best with Jake Browning, but did not really work out in the end as they just missed the playoffs. They finished in last place considering that they had a winning record last year. So it just goes to show how good this division is in the AFC North. Obviously, they traded away Joe Mixon. They lost Tyler Boyd, as well as Jonah Williams and DJ Reader for the defensive line. Williams being the offensive tackle as well. And then, of course, they also lost Chidobe Awuzie to the Titans. They did add Zach Moss from the Colts. They gave T. Higgins the non-exclusive franchise tag. They signed Mike Gesicki. They brought in Trent Brown. Re-signed Cody Ford. And they also signed in Geno Stone and Von Bell they brought back. And also in the draft, we did see them draft Amarius Mims from Georgia. But as I mentioned, the biggest thing for the Bengals is now making sure Burrow stays healthy. Obviously, another concern was Jamar Chase's holdout, which it looks like it officially ended today. He did practice for the first time today after holding out most of this offseason. So it looks like he will play this upcoming week against the Patriots, but still something they have to figure out before next season because he only has 2 years left on his current rookie deal. So him and T. Higgins, they got to figure out eventually soon what they're going to do with those top two wide receivers. But the Bengals looking to get back into the postseason this year after missing out last year.
Yeah, again, like kind of like I said with the Baltimore Ravens, I almost feel like Cincinnati is kind of in that similar position from the standpoint that I don't think that T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are going to be here together for the long haul. I could be wrong. Mike Brown is known for his frugality, so then again, I'm also not surprised that T. Higgins didn't get traded. Although he was another guy I had on the Giants' radar if he was available. But yeah, I don't. It's another now or never situation. Like you got to do this now because I don't think this team is going to be together much longer.
And honestly, you could say the same case for the next team that I'm going to bring up. That's the Cleveland Browns. Because the way that they did fix their cap issues with the restructuring of Deshaun Watson's contract, but they're in a spot where if you don't know what Deshaun Watson is bringing to the table this upcoming season, then you're going to be in a spot where you might be rebuilding soon because you don't know, you're going to have to figure out your quarterback situation. Obviously, the biggest loss from him in the offseason was Joe Flacco. And that's saying something in the year 2024. But Flacco was the biggest reason why the Browns were in the playoffs last season. Now, credit, they did sign Jameis Winston and Tyler Huntley. So they do have a couple quarterback veterans on their roster. They also brought in Jerry Jeudy in the trade with the Broncos. Don't know if that's a good addition or not, considering what his tenure was in Denver. They did sign to Darius Smith as well for the defense, and they also brought in guys like Devin Bush and Jordan Hicks for the linebacking core. So the Browns are in a spot, guys, where I mean, I don't want to say it's now or never, but the cap space, getting rid of some of that cap space from Deshaun Watson's restructured deal definitely helps them in the long run, but they're still in a spot where, what's the future of Amari Cooper looking like? What's the status of Nick Chubb going to be this upcoming season? Because he's obviously out at least for the first 4 weeks of this upcoming season. So they have a lot to figure out going in to this upcoming 2024-25 season if they want to get back into the postseason.
Yeah, I think this is maybe I should have prefaced this in the beginning, talking about the AFC Norris division. Is that this is the weirdest I've ever seen this division probably in my lifetime, or the current way this division is set up, I should say. This is for basically my whole life. This has been one of, if not the strongest divisions in the NFL. And this year, this could be the weakest that it's ever been. And that's strange for me because in my life, you've always considered Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and give or take Cleveland and Cincinnati, depending on the years. You can always basically confirm that two of these teams, if not three, will be vying for the playoffs. So this is a very strange season. But yeah, I agree with you with Cleveland. They're in. I mean, all three of these teams are basically in the same position. It's very weird.
And then rounding out the AFC North, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, a very interesting offseason for them as well. They traded away Kenny Pickett, so that experiment is now gone. They traded away Deontay Johnson as well. They got rid of some other players like Patrick Peterson, Keanu O'Neal from the secondary. And they did add Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. So we'll see what that quarterback room is going to look like. They do have Russell Wilson listed as the starter for week number 1. Obviously, Arthur Smith as well is the new offensive coordinator for that team. So we'll see if that's a good or a bad thing. At least for your fantasy owners, that is not a good thing. So then might have to stay away from Steeler players if you haven't already for your fantasy football teams. Did bring in Patrick Queen as well for their linebacker core, getting him away from the Baltimore Ravens. And of course, they brought in Deshaun Elliott as well. So Steelers making some good moves, guys, to help them position themselves as a team that, as we all know, somehow lucks their way into potentially 9 wins at the very least and getting that 500 or above record keep going streak for Mike Tomlin. So with that being said, Who do you guys have winning the AFC North this upcoming season?
Give me the Baltimore Ravens. I think the addition of Derrick Henry is going to proven to be too much. I realize that the Bengals are probably right there. I like that T Higgins is back. I like Trent Brown, but I think just having Derrick Henry in that wildcat they love to run, it's going to prove to be unstoppable.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I've said this basically all off season. Derrick Henry to me is the X factor in this division. Period. So yeah, I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, folks, this is where you pick a different division winner because I'm also going with Baltimore. So probably put your money on Cincinnati or someone else to win the division. When three people pick, never a good sight whatsoever. But I'm going with Baltimore. It's pretty much their division to lose after having the best record in the AFC last year. They just got to find a way again once again this season to make sure that they get back into at least for them try to get to the Super Bowl after missing out last season and a heartbreaking loss to the Chiefs. Let's go to the next division, the AFC South, the division that kind of surprised a lot of people last season for being very competitive. You have the Texans, losing guys like Devin Singletary, uh, Jerry Hughes, Jonathan Grenard, Malik Collins, Blake Cashman, while also adding for their team, trading for Joe Mixon, as I mentioned earlier. They traded for Stephon Diggs, signed back Nico Collins. They brought in Dalton Schultz re-signing. Of course, signing Daniil Hunter to a big contract to replace Jonathan Grenard. And then they're in a good spot as well with CJ Stroud in his upcoming sophomore season. You then go to a team like the Colts, who brought in Joe Flacco as a backup. Never a bad thing after what he did last season. They've brought back Michael Pittman in a contract extension, as well as, signing DeForest Buckner back. They brought back Zaire Franklin, Kenny Moore, Julian Blackman, pretty much bringing back the guys that they already had, while also, as I mentioned, losing guys like Zach Moss and of course Gardner Minshew, who started pretty much all of last season after Anthony Richardson went down. Anthony Richardson's going to be, the big piece for this upcoming season for the Colts if they want to get into the playoffs, because we still don't know realistically what he brings to the table. We only saw him for 4 games last year. They also brought in Leatu Latu and Adonai Mitchell from the NFL draft. The Jacksonville Jaguars had a very interesting offseason. They drafted Brian Thomas in the first round of this past draft. They traded for Mac Jones, as I mentioned earlier on. They gave Trevor Lawrence a huge contract extension up to worth $275 million. They signed Gabe Davis. They signed Ezra Cleveland, Mitch Morse for the offensive line. They re signed Josh Allen to another contract extension. Arik Armstead was brought in from the 49ers. And then they also did lose Calvin Ridley. They did lose guys like Trey Herndon from their secondary, Rayshon Jenkins, as well as Dewan Smoot for the defensive tackle spot. So they did lose some players in the past season, but adding guys like Brian Thomas will help them in the receiving core, as well as bringing back some of their guys like uh, Foyo Oluquan, as well as Josh Allen, and of course bringing in Arik Armstead. And then rounding out the AFC South, you have the Tennessee Titans, who, of course, signed Mason Rudolph to become the backup for Will Levis. They brought in Tony Pollard as the 1-2 back with Tyjae Spears. They signed Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley, Lloyd Cushenberry for their offensive line, Kenneth Murray for their linebacking core. They brought in Chidobe Awuzie, and of course, they traded for L'Jarius Sneed with the Chiefs. And then rounding it out, they signed Jamal Adams for their secondary. They did lose a bunch of players in the offseason. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, Andre Dillard to their offensive line, Aaron Brewer, their center, and they also lost to Nico Autry, Aziz Al Shayer, and then in their secondary, they lost Christian Folty and Sean Murphy Bunting. But with all those moves being said, guys, you look at what this division brings in tail and what's going to happen with this upcoming season. I forgot to mention the Titans also drafted J.C. Latham from Alabama in the first round. If do we think that the Texans are going to repeat as the AFC South champs, or do we see a team like Jacksonville or Indy maybe overtake them this season? Because most likely the Titans are still in a rebuilding spot with Will Levis in year number 2 of his quarterback contract.
So my hot take is that Jacksonville will finish last in this division. That's my hot take.
Okay.
I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the next, or the NFL's first Bobby Bonilla, next to Deshaun Watson, because
Oh,
Deshaun Watson
come
has
on.
not gotten
You
cut from
just
that
want
team
Mac
yet.
Jones to start again.
Listen, I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen.
You think it's going to happen this soon? There's no way.
Maybe not
Uh,
this soon, but it's going to happen. I think you're going to start having questions around week 8. You're going to see about how if Trevor Lawrence is built for this game.
uh,
Uh,
yeah, I don't know about all that. I think this division, this is all going to rest solely on the shoulders of C.J. Stroud. If he can, last year they came out of nowhere. I didn't really have much expectations for them. I thought of them the same way I've been thinking of the Giants for the last couple of years. In that, they go that 7-10, 9-8, 8-9, 10-7. If everything falls out, that would be great, and they exceeded that. So CJ has to prove that it wasn't a fluke, and that he's not going to fall victim to the allure of the sophomore slump. If he can build off of what he did last year, um, obviously they're going to win the division. Um, Indianapolis, I don't think is there yet, because I think you've already seen a little bit of what Anthony Richardson can do, and he's not going to surprise anybody. Last year, I think that people maybe, teams didn't really believe in him, didn't really, oh, he's whatever, we can whatever. And I think maybe he came out and surprised a few people. I don't think you're going to surprise anybody this year. They see the film from last year and know what he can do. Um, I don't think Jacksonville is going to finish last. I think Trevor Lawrence is better than people say he is. Um, he just has to prove it. I don't think that Mac Jones is going to push him the way that Johnson seems to think that he's going to get pushed. It's gonna if Mac Jones starts this year, it's going to be because of injury. And as for the Titans, they're not there yet, but I still believe at the end of the day that Will Levis is going to be the best quarterback out of that draft.
you were clamoring about it
I
last year.
said it on draft day, and I'm still going to stand by that. I do think in 15 years or whatever it is, when all's said and done, Will Levis is going to be the best quarterback out of that draft.
Still a bold take. Um, so who do you guys have winning? You guys both have
I have
sounds
the
like the
Texans.
Texans.
This is their division to lose. Let's be real.
100%. Just basically just like the Ravens. It's their division to lose. Houston.
Yeah, I mean, after all the offseason moves they made, it has to be in that spot. I also agree the Texans win it, but again, like I said, for the last division, with three of us picking it, and we most likely want to pick a team like the Colts or the Jaguars now to probably win the AFC South, because it's probably bound to happen. Uh, Final division for the AFC is being the AFC West. I'll start off with Denver. Very interesting offseason they had. They obviously released Russell Wilson. They're paying a bunch of money for his contract while he's being on the Steelers. They traded away Jerry Jeudy. They lost Lloyd Cushenberry, and they lost Justin Simmons as well. For addition wise, I would say Zach Wilson's an addition. I can't say that with a straight face, so not really going to be saying that whatsoever. He's probably the third string on this team. They brought in guys like John Franklin Myers, which is a good addition for the defensive line. Cody Barton for the linebacking core. Um, Not really much to say about Denver. It's just going to be a rebuilding year for this Denver Broncos squad. But they do have Bo Nix, and they're hoping that maybe he's the next answer for this team. One of the more experienced quarterbacks in this past draft class. Sean Payton, who knows where they're going to be at the end of the season. Um, Going to the next team, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, looking for the three-peat this year. They drafted Xavier Worthy in this past NFL draft. They signed Hollywood Brown to a contract. They brought back Miko Hardman. They restructured Travis Kelsey's deal, as well as re-signing Chris Jones to a big contract. They also signed Drew Tranquil. They brought him back as well. And they really didn't lose that much if you think about it in the offseason. They lost Valdez Scanlon to the Bills. They lost Nick Allegretti to the Commanders. They traded L'Jarius Sneed. But they still pretty much look like the same team on paper from last season. And They did add a couple of receivers as well as Juju Smith-Schuster, who I've almost forgot about. So they did add a lot of good players, at least for their receiving core wise, that they're hoping that will help them try to get that three-peat this upcoming season. The next team we have is the Las Vegas Raiders. Antonio Pierce now is the full-time head coach for this team. Very happy to see that for him. He'll be bringing in, he'll be bringing in a couple new additions that are some big ones for his team. Gardner Minshew is the new starting quarterback for this team. For now, is the bridge gap until they find that future quarterback. So Minshew Mania will be running wild in Las Vegas this upcoming season. He'll have Alexander Madison. I don't know if that's a really big of addition at running back, but at least you have Zamir White, who had a very good 2023 season last year. You also brought in guys like Christian Wilkins, a huge addition for that defensive line to add with Max Crosby. Andre James, they brought back for that center. They brought in veteran like Cody Whitehair for the offensive line. And they had Michael Gallup until he retired. So they thought they had another receiver for that receiving core with Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, but that was no fruition for them. They lost Jimmy Garoppolo. The biggest one they lost was Josh Jacobs, of course. And they also lost Jermaine Illuminavor, Greg Van Roden. So they're going to be an interesting season with their offensive line coming up. They lost a lot of good players. They brought in Brock Bowers at least for their, to help Gardner Minshew, and they also brought in Jackson Powers Johnson, the guard slash center out of Oregon, to help fix that offensive line. So the Raiders are probably one of the more interesting teams in terms of will they improve on what they did from last season, or are they going to just, kind of falter back to what we saw for the most part of the first half of the 2023 season? So we'll see what happens to them. And of course, rounding out the AFC West, you have the Los Angeles Chargers. In my heart, they're still San Diego Chargers. They signed J.K. Dobbins. You signed Gus Edwards. Of course, the reason being is because you have Greg Roman, the new OC, the former Ravens offensive coordinator, with his familiarity with those two guys. And that's because Jim Harbaugh is the new head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. So he now gets those two guys at running back. You brought in DJ Chark, Will Dissly, Hayden Hurst, Bradley Bozeman. They signed Puna Ford, Bud Dupree for their defense. In the offseason, they did lose a lot of players, though. Austin Eckler, they let go in free agency. Trade away Keenan Allen. They lost Mike Williams. They lost Gerald Everett, Kenneth Murray, Eric Hendricks. They lost a lot. They're another one of those teams that had to deal with their cap issues, and they're now trying to rebuild and restructure their cap space for the next couple of years as they try to compete with Jim Harbaugh as the new head coach. It looks like Justin Herbert is going to start in week 1, which is a good sign for the Chargers because that was another issue that they had last season. He got injured throughout, I believe, at the midpoint or at the later stages of the end of the year, which at that point the Chargers were already out of playoff contention, but it poured more salt into the wound for them last year. But I think I know where you guys are going with this. Chiefs to win the AFC West. Is there really much of a conversation?
Chiefs to win the AFC West, and then Chargers as a not so distant second. I think the Chiefs take a step back. However, they still win the division.
Yeah, the Chargers second place.
Chargers second place.
Okay.
I think Quentin Johnston takes the leap.
Ooh.
I agree. I agree with Johnson.
Wow. Okay.
I have it down exactly the same. One thing I'll say, and I don't remember if I said this last year or not. I was really surprised with Denver last season, based off of Sean Payton's work with Drew Brees in New Orleans. I really expected to get the same thing from Russell Wilson last year. They're kind of the same build. They kind of have the same skill set. So I was really surprised about that. But I do like the kid they drafted, Bo Nix. I was really hoping that he was going to fall, maybe not to the second round, but fall far enough into the first round the Giants could trade back up and draft him. But obviously we didn't see that. Didn't happen.
Denver's
It's one of
all
those.
leaving.
Yeah, you find it. Listen, I can't knock Denver. You find the guy you like, you take the guy you like, you stay true to your board. That is what it is. But yeah, until proven otherwise, I've said this throughout everything. I have the Kansas City Chiefs are basically like the Houston Astros of football. Until someone else shows you otherwise, it's theirs to lose. Someone
Well,
else has to prove that they could stop them. And so far, nobody has done that.
well, thank you for making
So,
me hit the Chiefs for this upcoming season with that.
well, hey, it's the best. It's the best sports comparison I can make at the moment, and the fact that it's happening at exactly the same time, it's just one of those coincidences. Unfortunately, the Yankees get caught up in this, but that's a subject for another day.
Yeah, we are getting near October for baseball, so that is around the horizon. Let's go to the NFC to round out our conversation for the division winners. We'll start off with the Cowboys. From offseason, to say the least, with
Yuck.
them. Lost Pollard, lost Gallup, lost Tyron Smith, lost Tyler Biadasz. They lost Dorrance Armstrong. Leighton Vander Esch retired. They lost Stephon Gilmore. They didn't really do much in free agency. They added Zeke back. Sure. Their running game is going to be very weird this upcoming season with him and maybe Rico Dowdle. They did sign Dalvin Cook. Maybe that helps them. I don't know.
I I
Uh,
almost kind of got it in the off
and of
season.
course, they signed CeeDee Lamb to an extension.
I almost had the feeling in the off season that Dallas had no clue what they were doing. That there was no
Yeah.
plan. They just, oh yeah, we'll throw this together and figure it out. Like it was very very weird. I know they had a limited amount of cap space, if I'm not mistaken, but it just seemed like they had no plan of action in terms of free agency, the draft, or anything. It was just we'll throw it together and see what we get.
Well, we'll see what happens for them this upcoming season. Moving on to the next team, the New York Giants, and we'll discuss after. We'll discuss in a little bit, Sean, what we feel about the Giants upcoming for this season.
Sounds good.
Uh, Lost Tyrod Taylor. They lost Saquon, of course. They
Yeah.
lost, if you want to consider it a loss, they lost Darren Waller, to the greatest rapper of our generation.
Uh,
Um,
I think that was a good kind of loss. I think the team benefited from that loss.
Some would say
and
addition by subtraction.
yeah,
Yes,
they did
100%.
also, of course, lose Xavier McKinney, which was a big blow for their secondary. But they did make some big moves as well. To replace Tyrod, they signed Drew Lock to be the backup. Devin Singletary now overtakes Saquon in the running back room. They signed Jermaine Illuminfor to help with that offensive line, as well as John Runyon. They traded for Brian Burns, the biggest move they made this entire offseason, getting him from the Carolina Panthers, as well as giving him an extension. Uh, and then, pretty much bringing back some of the guys they had from last season as well. But story is going to be, of course, what's going to happen with their draft class. Malik Neighbors, the talk of the town. They brought in Tyler Newbin and Andrew Phillips for your secondary. You're hoping Theo Johnson could be that new starting tight end that can overtake after the debauchery that happened with Darren Waller this past season. But they're all resting on the shoulders of Daniel Jones. So not much optimism for the Giants in terms of that. So
Woof.
most likely see them as a team that's going to be probably drafting high next year's upcoming NFL draft.
That was a scary sentiment you just said. All rests on the shoulders of Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
Ugh,
exactly. It's not good.
ugh,
Not good
my God.
news. Uh, the going next team is the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost
Yuck.
guys like DeAndre Swift, as well as Jason Kelsey to retirement and Fletcher Cox to retirement. They traded Hassan Reddick and lost Kevin Byard. They did make a lot of good moves, though, for them. They brought in Kenny Pickett as the new backup quarterback after losing Marcus Mariota. They signed Saquon, of course.
Yeah.
They brought in an extension for A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. They signed Mekhi Becton, if that helps them. Sure, they'll probably make them good now, just because that's just the luck of the Jets. They've restructured Landon Dickerson's contract. They brought back Brandon Graham. They signed Bryce Huff, Devin White as well. They brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And they're on paper, they look like a good team. Obviously, last season was, they started off really hot, and then the end of the year, they just kind of faltered and lost it in, for me personally, a hilarious fashion in the playoffs. But
Yes.
one of the reasons why they lost in the playoffs was because of their passing game. They could not really defend. They had struggles with Bradbury and what was Darius Slay. They're kind of getting on the older side. So what they did in the
Mhm.
draft was get draft guys like Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and they're trying to fix that secondary for the upcoming season. So the Eagles look poised to be in a good spot to be one of those top contending teams in the entire NFC to try to make the Super Bowl for this upcoming
But
2024-25 season.
before you get to this last team, I just want to, in order to not interrupt the Giants' take later, uh, interesting thing was said by Tiki Barber, and it's something that I never really paid attention to. But guys like Saquon Barkley or Mekhi Becton, who you had high hopes for coming out in the draft, and maybe underperformed, playing for a worse a team that's worse off or something like that, is that now that they're with this new team and Philadelphia has shown the last couple of years they're it hurts to say this, they're a good team. Um, all those injuries that they had, all of a sudden these injuries don't happen. They're playing for a good team. Maybe they're playing some good football, and it's just a different kind of vibe. They come to the locker room with a different vibe, and it's Tiki Barber said it, and it's something I've never really paid attention to until he said it.
And then, of course, rounding out with the NFC East is the Washington Commanders. They're still the football team in my heart. Traded Sam Howell, lost Jacoby Brissett, lost Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel, Kendall Fuller, a bunch of names that they lost in the offseason. They did add Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, I guess, sure, Nick Allegretti, and Tyler Biadasz. Cleveland Farrell, if they try to make the former first round pick better. Dante Fowler, Frankie Louvu, and the veteran Bobby Wagner. But of course, the talk for the Commanders is the number 2 overall pick, Jaden Daniels, the former Heisman Trophy winner, is now the new starting quarterback for this team. And all I'm saying is, guys, that the Commanders are hoping for not a repeat of what happened with RG3, where you have the reigning Heisman Trophy winner drafted number 2 overall, and them getting a lot of hype and hope for this upcoming season, and they just don't want to have a repeat of what happened to RG3 pretty much almost a decade. Pretty much, actually, it is over a decade ago.
Well, the difference is Daniel Snyder isn't the owner anymore.
That is true. So maybe there is some good fortunes coming along the Commanders' way. So being that as it may, who do you have? Who do you guys have winning the NFC East?
So this is my take. I think that Dak is in a contract year. It's either play well this year, win the division, get paid $200+ million in the offseason, or play for the Broncos. So,
Well,
with
the
that
Giants.
being said,
Well, the Giants.
I think the Cowboys are going to win the division because Dak has
They have a
performed
repeat.
great in contract seasons. So I think it's going to be the Cowboys.
Well, remember, it's very rare for this division to have a repeat winner. So the Cowboys will be the first
It's
team to do it
been
in a long time.
It's got to
it,
happen sometime.
it's been I believe 19 years since the Philadelphia Eagles did it last, and yeah, I gotta go with the Cowgirls, unfortunately. But I mean, I just think Philadelphia's lost too much. Washington isn't there yet, and we'll get into the Giants in a little bit. So yeah,
And
unfortunately, the
for that
Cowgirls.
reason, I'm picking the New York. Yeah, I can't do it with a straight face. I'm picking the Eagles. um, yeah, just for the nature of new division winner every year, it's probably knowing my luck's gonna be the Eagles. They did lose a lot. Don't get me wrong, but they did add a good amount of players as well to help them for this upcoming season. I will say for the Giants, I don't really have much optimism. I didn't have much optimism in 2022 when they made the playoffs, so maybe I can rely on that. I will say the defense looks strong for them this upcoming season. Maybe not in the secondary as much, but defensive line and the linebacking core is going to be looking very, very good for them this upcoming season. Offense is where it gets very tricky because, as I mentioned, you're relying on Daniel Jones, and who knows what that's going to be coming for them for 2024.
The only wish I had for this Giants team is that Brian Burns had played in that kind of scheme that Wink Martindale ran, where it's blitz your balls off every down. Because I think a guy like Brian Burns and pairing him with a Kayvon Thibodeau, it could get dangerous for other teams. But be that as it may, I think the two of them together it's going to be lights out. It's back to the days of my youth when I came up of Carl Banks and LT, Michael Strahan and Jesse Armstead, those kind of guys. I think it'll be that kind of thing for them, and it's something that the Giants I haven't seen since at least the NASCAR days. But I think in terms of the offense, that I think they're obviously going to be better. Um, Daniel Jones has a target now, or a guy who should be the number one wide receiver. I don't know what they're going to do with him to start out the season, but
He's
I think
probably
the
the
big
number one, if not Slayton.
yeah. But I think the biggest issue with Daniel Jones last year
That's everything.
is that well, it was everything, but he got hurt at some point, and I don't want to say he didn't tell anybody, but he got hurt somewhere and didn't say anything. And when you start playing hurt, you're not necessarily playing the way you would normally play football. You're playing to not get hurt worse. And we see what happened. He wound up tearing his ACL or hurt his neck, whatever the injuries were, and all of a sudden it came out that he had all kinds of injuries. So I do believe that he was playing hurt for a significant portion of the season before he got hurt against the Raiders. So him healthy, maybe he's. I don't know. I just don't
Yeah,
know how to feel about him.
yeah.
Um,
Just
obviously, as a fan, I'll sit here and tell you, of course, I want him to succeed because I want my team to succeed. I just don't know how to feel about him.
I'm.
I said that when he was drafted too.
I can tell you how I feel about it. Give me Shador Sanders or whatever,
I
and we'll call it a
I
call it a
can't
year.
wait. I can't wait for young Prime next year to be coming out of the gate, leading its team
And
to a win.
the worst part
And
is it's not going to be any of them because it's probably going to be Dak Prescott.
Carson Beck.
Or it might be
no, I
Carson
don't want Carson Beck, and I really don't want Dak either. The
Beck.
guy I really wanted, and I didn't say this before, but I've said this other places. The guy I really wanted last year was Gardner Minshew.
Mm,
I just not that he's all world or anything, but there's just something about him that I like.
he's got the
He's
aura. He's got the aura.
yeah, he's a guy I really wanted the Giants to have taken a flyer on him last year, but you know can't go backwards and do that. But I just want them to show progress. If we could show progress, that would be outstanding.
We'll see. We'll try to do rapid fire quickly for these final three divisions. For the Bears, they traded Justin Fields, got lost guys like Darnell Mooney. Trying to look at any of the other notable ones. Yannick Ngakwe, I guess, is probably the most notable other one they lost, as well as Deontay Foreman. They did sign DeAndre Swift. They traded for Keenan Allen. They brought in Gerald Everett, as well as signing Kevin Byard. They re-signed Jalen Johnson, which is a big deal. So the Bears are obviously in a good spot. And of course, they drafted Caleb Williams as well as Roma Dunze. So a nice combination of receivers they have with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Dunze, giving that rookie quarterback Caleb Williams a great opportunity to potentially succeed for Chicago for this upcoming season. So there's a lot of hype for the Bears going into this year. Uh, the next team we have,
Rookie of the year is his to lose.
right? Yeah, it's either him or Daniels, most likely.
Yeah, yeah.
For the Detroit Lions, the talk of the town, it looks like for the new being the new kings of the NFC. Not much they really lost in the offseason. CJ Gardner Johnson, they lost Josh Reynolds, which might be addition by subtraction considering what happened with him in the NFC Championship game. Jonah Jackson was probably the most notable one that makes a big difference for their offensive line. Uh, they did make some moves as well. You know, they brought in Jared Goff in a new extension. They re-signed Amon-Ra St. Brown to a new extension. They signed Kevin Zeitler, Graham Glass now. They restructured, gave Penei Sewell a new contract extension. Pretty much bringing back some of their old guys. They traded for Carlton Davis from the Buccaneers. So pretty much they have the same exact roster from last season, albeit with some new additions on the offensive line. And of course, getting Davis in the secondary. So the Lions look poised to be in another spot to win the NFC North and maybe even be the winners of the NFC and go to the Super Bowl this year for the first time in their franchise's history. For the next team, the Green Bay Packers, they had a pretty productive offseason as well. And I also forgot to mention, by the way, for the Lions, Terry Arnold, the corner from Alabama, a big addition for their secondary as well. But going back to the Packers, they were pretty productive in this offseason. To note their noteworthy subtractions, they lost Aaron Jones and John Runyon, as well as Devondre Campbell and Darnell Savage. But They did bring in Josh Jacobs for their running game. That will be a big spark for them after losing Aaron Jones. They also brought in Xavier McKinney, as I mentioned earlier on him leaving the Giants. A big spark for their secondary, considering they have a new DC in Green Bay. And then we saw in the draft, they really didn't make a notable move. They did draft Jordan Morgan, with their first pick, trying to fix their offensive line after losing Runyon as well. So he most likely will be a potential starting guard for them this season. And then rounding out the NFC North, probably the most unlucky team maybe in all of football, that being the Minnesota Vikings. Where do you start with them? You lost Kirk Cousins. You lost Marcus Davenport. Lost Daniil Hunter. You lost a lot. I guess KJ Osborne, would be another subtraction they lost because he was a pretty serviceable wide receiver for them. They did add Aaron Jones. They finally brought Justin Jefferson that contract extension that he definitely deserved. They signed in Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, and of course they signed Sam Darnold, who was originally supposed to be in a quarterback competition going into the season with their first round draft pick, JJ McCarthy, but McCarthy gets injured in the first preseason game of the year. He's out for the season with a torn Achilles. They did also bring in Dallas Turner for their defense, but you know, all the unluckiness that the Vikings have had as well, with Jordan Addison having his off the field issues as well as on the field issues with him getting hurt in practice. Being that all as it may, guys, who do we have winning the NFC North?
So
I,
go ahead,
no,
Sean.
go ahead. No, you go ahead, Johnson.
So I'm going to go with the Packers here.
Okay.
I
Really?
like Jordan Love's progression. I like Christian Watson. I know
Love
they
just got
lost
paid.
Aaron. Yeah. Say it again.
I was saying Jordan Love just got paid a big contract too.
He just got paid a big contract. I think he lives up to it. Christian Watson's an outstanding wide receiver. I know they just got rid of Aaron Jones. They have 2 question marks at tight end, but Jordan Love, I think he just has it. It's just that it factor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Josh Jacobs is a very good addition for that running
He
back
is,
core.
and I think he's better
He's
than
gonna
Aaron
thrive.
Jones. He's only
He's gonna thrive
26
in Green
years
Bay.
old. It seems it's weird because it seems like he's always like this forgotten guy. He's actually a really good running back.
And it's funny because he
So
just ran for 2,000 yards not too long, like 2 years ago.
yeah, so like
Yeah.
he's always this underrated guy. So I'm excited to see what he brings to this team. So I'm gonna go with the Packers.
I'm going with Detroit. I do like the Green Bay Packers. I really do like the Green Bay Packers. Um, but I just think that Detroit, there's something there. I like what Dan Campbell's doing there. I
Believer
like the
too.
whole grit. I just think that last year left a bad taste in their mouth, and I think these guys got to be chomping at the bit to get back to this, and I have Detroit winning this division.
All right. Well, this division last year was tough to pick. And maybe it's not as tough this year, but it still leaves a lot of question marks for this coming season. That's the NFC South. We'll start with the Falcons. Probably made the most noise out of every team in this division. Got rid of Arthur Smith. That's a good addition by subtraction. Um, lost Calais Campbell. They traded Desmond Ritter, which is probably for the best. They lost Cordell Patterson. That's probably the only notable moves by subtraction wise. They did add Kirk Cousins, a big contract, which I don't know how to feel about it still because it was a lot of money given to him coming off an Achilles injury. As we all know, and we all pretty much every entire NFL fan clowned them for, they did also draft Michael Penix Jr. with their first overall pick. So who knows how long Kirk Cousins is going to be there as the starting quarterback?
I
We'll have to see.
I I,
And
I
they
I
also
think
signed
it's
Darnell Mooney. Go ahead.
I think it's noteworthy to just say that you spoke about Kirk Cousins. He did say if Atlanta was up front with him, he never would have signed with them. If they
All
told
right.
him that they were going to draft Penix, he wouldn't have signed there. So I think that's a
He probably
noteworthy
still be in
thing.
Minnesota right
Yes, that's a noteworthy thing to me.
And then the other move the Falcons made getting Rondell Moore in a trade. He is injured right now, but they do have a good receiving core coming up with Drake London, and we'll see if Bijan Robinson can do something because with no Arthur Smith, maybe he finally gets a big season this upcoming year. They did though. potentially lose Kyle Pitts for the first week of the season because, of course, why not? Kyle Pitts just continues to have, if you drafted him in fantasy, Godspeed to you because it just never works out for you when you have him as your starting tight end. The next team is the team that I somehow, for some reason, picked to win the division last year, and they had the worst record in the entire league, that being the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, did not have their first round pick after trading in with the Bears and the DJ Moore trade. They did trade into the draft to get Xavier Leggett in the end of the first round. They drafted Jonathan Brooks in the second round for their running back core. In the offseason, they lost DJ Chark. They lost Bradley Bozeman, Utergros Matos, Frankie Louvu, Brian Burns. They traded to the Giants, and they traded Dante Jackson to the Steelers, as well as losing Von Bell. In the trade with the Steelers, they did get Deontay Johnson to be one of their, probably the most likely going to be the number one wide receiver for this team. They brought in Yosh Nijman from the Packers. They signed Robert Hunt to a big deal, as well as Damian Lewis. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney. They re-signed Derek Brown to a new extension, and they signed in Jordan Fuller for their secondary. So the Panthers, obviously, new head coach as well for them, and David Canales. I mean, it can't get any worse from what happened from last season for Carolina. But then again, they do have Tepper as their owner, so that's probably not a good spot for them being there. And then you have the New Orleans Saints, who Johnson already knows I'm not a big fan of going into this season, but I'll explain. I pretty much have already explained why I'm not a big fan for them going into this year. Lost Jameis Winston. They got rid of Michael Thomas. Andrews Pete left. They lost Zach Baun. They lost Marcus May. And they really could not do much in the offseason because of their cap issues, which has been a problem for them for over a decade now at this rate. They were able to add Chase Young. They agreed to a new deal with Demario Davis. They brought in Willie Gay, and they signed a new contract with Tyrann Mathieu, but I'm not sold on the Saints whatsoever going into this 2024-25 season. So, sorry, Saints fans. It's just how I feel about them. I'm just not. I just don't like what they are bringing to the table for this upcoming season. And I forgot who they took in the draft. I know they took Spencer Rattler. They got Kool-Aid McKinstry and Talise Fuaga. I forgot about that. So they did make some nice moves in the draft, but that will be helpful for their future, not now. And then rounding out the division is, of course, the division champion, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who kind of surprised a lot of people last year by winning the division in their first year without Tom Brady. Grant Barron, they got in the draft to replace Ryan Jensen, who just retired this past offseason. They lost also Shaq Barrett and Devin White, as well as trading Carlton Davis. But they did re-sign Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, which were the two biggest moves they could have made this entire offseason. And they also re-signed Levante David, which is another good move for them as well as bringing back Jordan Whitehead from the Jets and, of course, re-signing Antoine Winfield Jr. So with that being said, guys, who do you have winning this NFC South?
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning this division. Baker really surprised me last year. I didn't think that he would have as good a season as he had. But again, this is a weird division because a number of things can happen that'll lead this division to someone winning. I just by default it has to be Tampa Bay.
I think the fault it has to be Atlanta with all the offseason moves they made. They
Mm.
got rid of their anchor as a head coach. They have a massive
Morris brings.
improvement at quarterback. Uh, Listen, I love what the Buccaneers did last year. Is it enough to sustain it for 2 straight years? I don't know. I'm going with the new hot team around. I'm going to go with the Falcons.
I would
By the way,
agree
I
with
don't
you,
know.
Johnson,
Yeah,
if they drafted DJ Dallas or Dallas, whatever is the defensive end.
Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner. DJ
Yeah,
Dallas is
Dallas
a
Turner, not
running
DJ
back.
Dallas.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I know.
Whatever.
I know
If
what
they
you're
had
saying.
drafted Dallas Turner, I 100% would agree with you.
I also don't know if I made my pick for the NFC North. I do have the Lions as well winning that division. Uh, but for the NFC South, I'm going to go with Johnson as well. I'm going to go with the Falcons. I think Kirk Cousins just brings a whole new mentality for that team. They're kind of the sexy pick right now in terms of this division. And Johnson knows how I feel about guys like Drake London and Bijan. I think they're going to have a really good season this year with Kirk Cousins at being their quarterback. And of course, you get that stench away of Arthur Smith no longer being there. Raheem Morris really is not a proven commodity as a head coach. We've seen him already be a head coach, but I think he'll bring a good style for the Falcons in terms of defense because defense was a huge issue for them last year. So I do have Atlanta as well as winning the NFC South. And then finally, folks, with our last division, that will be the NFC West. The Cardinals, not many additions they made this offseason. The biggest one probably was Marvin Harrison Jr., just getting him in the draft. A huge addition, a game changing wide receiver to finally get for Kyler Murray, who is coming back from that injury from last season, did play at the end of the year, but to get him as well as getting guys like Darius Robinson and even Max Melton and Trey Benson in the second day of the draft was huge for them going into the season. The biggest attractions they had really is maybe Marquise Brown, but not a lot of subtractions for the Cardinals. So I think there's a lot of optimism for them going into this upcoming season.
Didn't they also trade for the all-world Desmond Ritter?
They cut him though. Yeah, they traded Rondell Moore for him,
Yeah,
and they cut him. He's
and
no
I know
longer on the team.
we originally started as a card
Oh
page.
man,
We
that's
still
funny.
are. And I
That's
remember
funny.
specifically at a show, a guy was trying to get me so hard to buy his Desmond Ritter RPA.
Yeah,
And when
you
I
would
mean
not sell.
he was marketing this thing. And I told the guy, "Hey, listen, I don't really trust him. This dude probably won't even be on a team next year." And he's it only kind of was, but what if he is on a team next year? I'm like, listen, if that's your best argument, like
It's not a good
just sell
argument.
that to the lowest bidder right now, because if
Yeah.
not, it's gonna be in the $5 bargain bin later on, and this dude's not on a team. So I feel
Hey.
very good about not buying that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
The next team we have is the Los Angeles Rams. Not many subtractions, bigger than the one that they lost in Aaron Donald, who retired this past offseason. So a huge loss for their defense. But, they did add guys like Kevin Dotson. They brought back Kevin Dotson, I should say. Then they brought in Jonah Jackson from the Lions. They brought in Tre'Davious White from the Bills. So they're hoping that he can bounce back from his injury pass. Cameron Curl for their secondary as well. And they brought Jimmy G as a backup quarterback because why not? It's not a bad idea to have him as a backup at least. And they had their first round pick this past NFL draft as well. The first time in a long time. I forgot the exact year. Maybe it was Jared Goff, actually, now that I think about it. Um, but they did bring in Jared Verse, who was trying to be that maybe guy to replace Aaron Donald in the upfront for their defensive line. And of course, another big addition for them in the draft was Blake Corum to try to pair up him and Kyron Williams. For the reigning champions of this division, you have the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
What an offseason, to say the least, for this team, right? Holdouts from Ayuk, holdouts from Trent Williams. They might have a holdout next season with Brock Purdy. And, in the offseason, they lost Darnold, who's now the starter for the Vikings. Chase Young, Eric Armstead. Not many losses they had, but next season could be the year that they lose a lot more players because of cap issues. I mentioned the guys that had the holdout. They were able to work out deals and bring them back, that being Trent Williams and Ayuk. They also signed McCaffrey to an extension, and they signed Leonard Floyd, as well as Uturgos Matos, and they brought back some of their offensive linemen. Feliciano was one of them to note it.
Giants legend.
Yeah, Giants legend John Feliciano. But of course, they drafted Ricky Pierce, so hopefully he's doing better. Obviously, had that scary incident a couple of days ago, getting shot after a house robbery. I was getting deja vu with the Sean Taylor when hearing that story, but thankfully he was
Yes.
able
Yes.
to somehow fight through it despite getting shot in the chest, and he looks to be at least in good conditions. We'll see if he plays at all this upcoming season. The receiver out of Florida. And then finally, rounding it out, folks, that is the Seattle Seahawks in this division. In the offseason, they lost Drew Lock, who's now the backup for the Giants, Will Disley, Damian Lewis, Jordan Brooks, Devin Bush, Bobby Wagner, and Jamal Adams. So a lot of losses, as well as also, moving Pete Carroll to a more front office move while getting a new head coach and Mike McDonald. But for their addition wise, they traded for Sam Howell to be the backup for Geno Smith. So maybe the future starting quarterback for this team. We'll have to see if that comes to fruition. And all the notable moves were bringing back Leonard Williams as well as signing Jerome Baker from the Miami Dolphins, and they got Laken Tomlinson from the Jets. And then in the draft, the big move was getting Byron Murphy the second out of Texas, who they are praising a lot after what he did in the preseason. So they're expecting him and Leonard Williams to be big factors for them for this upcoming season. So who do we have winning the NFC West to round out our division pick winners?
49ers, and let's skip everything else. That's the
Yeah,
obvious answer. I don't think anyone else is picking anyone else other than the 49ers. If
49ers to lose.
speak now, forever
Absolutely.
hold your peace.
Yeah, no, it's San Francisco. Unfortunately, because I don't like San Francisco, but it's San Francisco.
All right, so since we were able to get that one over, I'll do a quick do you want me to do a quick recap, Johnson, of our division picks, or we want to just move into the MVP and Super Bowl?
I think we can move into MVP
All
Super
right.
Bowl.
Worst case scenario, we'll recap it at the end of the season. Let's go into MVP. Who do we have winning the MVP for this upcoming year? I do have the odds if people want to know what their current pick is as well.
I don't want to say a hot take, but I think I have the correct take for
Okay.
MVP. CJ Stroud. They wanted to give it to this guy so
Mm.
badly last year, and I think one good campaign will convince people to give him the MVP trophy. He's clearly a star in the making, so give me CJ Stroud as my MVP.
I'm gonna go with maybe even a hotter take than that. I'm going with Jordan Love.
I knew you were gonna do that when you said as
I'm
soon as you
okay with
said
Jordan Love.
hotter take, you know that's where he was going.
I just think that. I mean, obviously Patrick Mahomes is the sexy pick, quote unquote.
Yeah,
But
no one wants to pick the sexy pick.
I just don't see it. I think Jordan Love, as Andrew alluded to, has a lot of pieces around him, and I think that Jordan Love is going to do something really special this year up there. Again, I don't think that they're going to win that division, but I do think that Jordan Love is going to do something, kind of like Aaron Rodgers did in that first season after Brett Favre, and oh wow, look at this, and then he came out, guns blazing for like the next 10 years. So I think Jordan Love.
I'm gonna take Josh Allen, and kind of what you said
Oh,
about
Wow.
you said how I don't have them to win the division, and that's right. I don't have the Bills to win the division. I do have them making the playoffs as a wild card team, but I think it's a proven year for Allen because of all these guys you lost in the offseason. You're going to want to go out there and prove it, and I think he's going to be able to do that this season. The biggest concern is obviously eliminating your turnovers, which you're going to have to do more now than often with the subtractions you had in the receiving core. But I think he'll be able to do that. And I think he'll have a really good, strong season for Buffalo, getting them into another postseason berth. And for their sake, for the Bills fans' sake, maybe get further than where they've been the past couple postseasons as they try to make the Super Bowl for the first time in a long time. So give me Josh Allen to win MVP for this upcoming season. And then
interesting take. Interesting take.
Let's round it out with the Super Bowl, guys.
Very interesting take.
And that's what we give here on the Mushing Hour. Sometimes we give you interesting takes.
I mean, he's probably, if I had to guess, he's probably the odds-on favorite.
No, Patrick Mahomes
Yes.
is the odds-on favorite.
Patrick
Now,
Mahomes is okay. I'm not.
Josh
counting him.
Allen
He
has
doesn't
second
count.
best odds behind him. Stroud
Okay,
and
that's
Love
fair. Okay.
have around like 800 to 1,000 odds, so they're pretty much the
All right,
same.
so long shot, but not like lotto
Yeah,
ticket.
it's
Okay.
not out of the ordinary. They're like top 5, top 6 choices.
I do want to say this though. I'm glad that Sheep isn't on here because he'd say something stupid like like Tua or something like that
Oh,
is going to win the
no,
MVP.
no, he hates
And,
Tua.
He would never
pick
say Tua.
He would pick
well,
Jared.
maybe
Goff.
not Tua, but
No,
he'd say
He would
something like
pick Jared Goff.
Jared Goff.
That's what
Like he'd say something stupid like that. So I'm kind of glad that he's not here to bring this whole segment down.
I will say
Tell
CFC.
me how you really feel.
CFC having plus 4,000 odds. That's a good value pick considering what he did last season. Just saying.
Considering
Yeah.
running backs aren't allowed to win MVP, that's
But
wasting your money.
then again, he was on the Madden cover, so he's probably gonna be cursed for this upcoming season. And I have him in one of my
Well.
fantasy leagues, so I'm probably screwed in that league. What about Super
Well,
Bowl? Who do we have making the Super Bowl? And then we'll pick who you guys have winning the Super Bowl.
I am going to run it back the way I did last year.
Chiefs
I
Lions again.
have Detroit and Kansas City.
Okay. Hey, it almost worked out. You got one of them at least. You almost got both of them. The Lions didn't show
Yep.
that second half.
I just think again it's that situation like I said before, specifically with Kansas City. someone else got to prove that they could do it. I just don't see it as of right now. It's Kansas City's conference to lose. And as for Detroit, I said it before. I think that, I think they're hungry. They're just as hungry, if not more hungry, than they were last year. So I'm Detroit, Kansas City.
And right now, Kansas City has plus 500 odds, while the Lions have plus 1,200 odds to make the Super Bowl this year. What about do you want to pick? Johnson? You want to make him pick his Super Bowl winner now, or you want to do that after we make our picks? To
You
make
can
the
pick a
Super Bowl?
Super Bowl winner now.
All right. So who do you have
The whole
winning that
thing.
game, Sean? Between the two, do the Chiefs three?
Well, I have, for the first time in NFL history, I have a three-peat. I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning. Again, like I just said, someone's got to prove to me that they can do it, and so far, no one's proved that they can. San Francisco in both Super Bowls seemed like there were moments where, hey, oh wow, they capitalized on this, they can run away with it, but no. So until someone proves to me that they can do it, I see it happening. Johnson will like this. I do think that if Kansas City wins the Super Bowl this year, I think you might see Andy Reid retire.
Oh God, thankfully.
No words. He would love to hear
overrated
this.
head coach of all time.
No, but in my opinion, it's kind of like Jerome Bettis or Michael
Can I
Strahan.
ask?
How better to go out on top?
Can I ask how painful would it be if, let's say, Andy Reid did retire? How hurtful would it be for you? If, like, let's say Belichick just say, you know what, I want to coach the Chiefs. Would that hurt your?
No, that would not happen.
You don't think so?
I'm saying it's not going to happen. So
I'm not going to lie to you. I think if Andy Reid retires, if I'm Bill, I mean that's the best scenario to go to.
I mean, it's the best scenario.
It's ready made.
Would the Chiefs want to give him that opportunity? That's what the.
I don't. I mean, his friend used to be there
right?
in Scott Pioli. I don't know if he has any hooks there still, but
it's Belichick. You never know.
It would be an interesting take. The only other place that keeps floating around, and it's only because it's where he started, is the New York Giants.
Yep, I love Brian Dable, but I have a bad feeling.
I love Dabes, and personally, regardless of how this season goes with the Giants, I don't see the Giants parting ways with Dabes anyway. It'd have to be really disastrous, and even that, I think he survives it because Daniel Jones stinks.
Yeah. What about you, Johnson? What do you have for Super Bowl?
So if I make Chiefs Jets, if I just say that's my official Super Bowl prediction, even though we're both AFC, does that mush both of them from not winning the Super Bowl?
I don't think it works like that.
I think it does work like
you
this.
You can have them in your AFC Championship game.
This is partially my show, so I'm gonna say that's my pick. All right. Anyways, I think the Chiefs do make it there. The team out of the NFC. Oh, this is tough. It's so tough. It's very tough. I am going to pick Chiefs Cowboys. I'm going to pick Chiefs Cowboys. No one in America is happy. It's Chiefs Cowboys.
That's like Eagles Patriots.
Don't worry. Only for the Cowboys to lose 42-0 to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's my winner.
Oh God, that's terrible. That's horrible.
I don't think that's.
Oh man, are you trying to kill the entire Northeast of America?
I think I am.
Golly. Oh man.
All right. So my Super Bowl pick. I think, guys, we're going to have a preview of the Super Bowl this upcoming week. I'm going with the Jets and the 49ers. And I do have San Francisco winning the Super Bowl. I think because, and listen, I could say the Jets. No one would believe it.
Golly. I didn't think you were one of these people, Nick.
I am not
more from you.
Listen, I'm going based off of the Jets have a great defense. I think Rodgers will do just enough to get them to that spot. However, I'm not saying they're going to win the whole thing. I think San Francisco is just too good of a team. They have to get it done at some point. If they don't get it done this year, then it's over. They're never going to ever get it done. They're going to lose guys like Deebo Samuel. They're going to lose guys like McCaffrey and Williams sooner rather than later, even though they just extended them, they're going to be gone from that team eventually. So, and DeForest Buckner too. So, like, they need to get this done now. And Purdy's a free agent at the end of next season, so they have to win because then they're going to have to go into a whole contract negotiation with him, and you're going to lose a bunch of players because of that if you don't resign him, or if you do resign him, you're going to lose those players. So, I got San Francisco winning it over the Jets in my Super Bowl. But with that all being said, and yes, it's been a very long one, but that comes with the episode being the NFL preview. Let's go into the final segment, the mushing hour. Johnson, I think everyone by now pretty much knows what the mushing hour entails.
Everyone knows the mushing hour.
Now,
so with that being said,
yeah,
let's do a rapid fire.
All
I'm not gonna do the whole spiel where I talk up the games.
Yeah,
we're doing a rapid fire.
All right, before you do that,
up.
I was just gonna say I was gonna go off of our records from last season as well. Johnson had a very good year, 84-69 for the entire NFL season. A very strong season from you there. I went 79-74, so an up and down year. I'll take my +5 of the win column. And Sean, for the picks that you did make, you were 6-9, so I'm pretty sure you're happy with that that record regardless. For reasons.
Well, yes, of course. Everybody loves a 6 and a 9.
Right.
That's always a good.
So,
time.
Being that as Johnson mentioned, we're gonna go rapid fire for our mushing hour. I'll give you the guys the games, and you guys can make the picks quickly after. Ravens at Chiefs Thursday Night Football in Kansas City tomorrow night. Kansas City is a -3 favorite with the over under at 46.5. What do you guys have winning that game?
Ravens +3. I think they win, but if you could give me the points, I'll take the points.
I'm going to take the not the Ravens. I'm going to take the Chiefs, and I don't know.
-3, touchdown. How were we thinking?
I don't know. I guess the Chiefs
money line.
-3.
You can do the money line too.
Yeah, then you know what? I'll take Chiefs money line.
All right. With these two teams, you would expect points. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like the under for this game. I'm going to go with the under. I think we see defense play a factor, and I think you're going to see a lot more running from the Ravens, which will lead to a low scoring game. So I'm going to go with the under for this game. I have the Chiefs winning it also. Next game we have is on Friday, the first time of this incarnation with the Packers and Eagles playing in Brazil. The Eagles are a 3-point favorite with the over-under being at 48.5. Who do you guys have for that one?
Give me Packers +3. I think it's disrespectful that they're being. I think they're better than Philly. I think Philly lost too much in the offseason, so give me Packers +3.
I'm going to take the Packers and the over, but I will say this: only in the NFL can they set up a game in Brazil where nobody's allowed to wear green because gangs will shoot each other because it's not a bad color, and they send the only 2 teams in the league.
Yeah.
That have green as their basic color. Only in the NFL would they do something stupid like that. But be that as it may, Packers in the over.
Packers money line or spread?
Spread.
Okay. I hate to do it. I'm going to take Eagles -3. I don't really have a good reasoning. I've just seen the biggest reason why I've seen Saquon Barkley against the Packers defense for a couple years now, and he's torched them every single time. So I think Saquon will have a pretty good night in Brazil against this Packers defense, albeit though that they have a new defense. I still think Saquon has a really strong game and leads the Eagles to a win, which is really disgusting to say out of my mouth, but it is what it is now.
I hope Saquon tears both of his ACLs in this game.
No surprise there. Let's move into the Sunday slate, guys. And how about this first game we have? Steelers and Falcons, 2 new teams with 2 new quarterbacks. Of course, it's the Arthur Smith Bowl. He's returning to Atlanta for week number 1. Falcons are a -3.5 favorite with the over-under at 42.5. What do you guys have for this one?
Give me Falcons -3.5 here. I don't believe in Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I'm going to take Falcons -3 also.
Oh no! That's
there it is.
That's
yes.
That's
there
where
it is.
Yes.
Falcons -3.5 is exactly where we're going. I agree with Johnson. I need to see something out of the Steelers before I can even have confidence in them. So
100%.
I trust Kirk Cousins to get the Falcons a win. Knowing our luck, it's probably going to be.
Hold on, is the game happening at noon?
It's a 1 o'clock kickoff.
All right, noon nightmare for the win. There we go.
Yeah. Next game we have is a divisional rival game in the first week of the season. And this game, remember how the season ended last year, where the Texans and Colts played in the final week of the season, decided a division winner, and the Texans were able to hold on in that game in Indianapolis. And they once again meet to start this regular season, however. Texans going on the road into Indy are 2.5 point favorite with the over under 48.5. What do you have for this one?
Texans minus 2.5. The secondary on the Colts is not going to be able to keep up with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, with CJ Stroud throwing them the ball. And plus, they got Joe Mixon coming out of the backfield. If you want to maybe have some more safeties, linebackers, corners, whatever you want to cover these guys, then you're going to let Joe Mixon run up the middle. So give me Houston minus 2.5 until teams can figure out how to beat this offense.
Yeah, I hate to do this again, but yeah, I'm gonna agree. Texans minus 2.
Okay. Well, I was gonna take minus 2.5. Do I just do that, or do I just say screw it, give me the -3?
You can say minus 3, make it alternative spread for the extra
Yeah, just
tenth of a percent.
yeah, might as well just -3. Why not?
There you go, alternative spread, so it's not
Yeah,
much.
not full mush. I Texans probably again. I think they're just too good not to win this game. The Colts will make this competitive, though. I think this will be a close game between the two. Then we go down to South Florida for the Jaguars at the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a -3.5 point favorite with the over under 48.5. So it could be a high scoring game potentially between these two. Who do you have in this one?
Miami minus 3.5. It's not even gonna be close. I think they win by double digits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm taking Miami in the over.
Miami three
The
and a half.
spread. No, the points.
Yeah, -3.5.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
not
good.
paying attention.
And the over.
Yes.
Sean is the only person so far that's taken 2 picks. I like that. I like that. I usually do that sometimes myself. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Dolphins -3.5 also. So we'll have another mush there. I would like to take the over, but I've seen Trevor Lawrence for what happened last season, and I'm very concerned that maybe they won't put up the points. So I'll just play it safe with the -3.5 for that one. The next game we have is a interesting matchup in Cleveland. The Cowboys at the Browns, a 2.5 point favorite spread for the Browns with the over-under being 41.5. And remember, this is Tom Brady's first game as an announcer. It'll be his first time announcing a game in the booth, so he'll have an interesting matchup to call for week number 1. Who do you guys have for that one?
Cowboys plus 2.5. They're my Super Bowl pick, so gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going Cowboys plus 2. And
Wow. Okay.
might I say, I am very glad that the NFL didn't get unoriginal and schedule the Giants to play the Cowboys again in opening weekend.
Yeah, they just
Very
waited for
happy
a
to see
Thursday
that.
night game in week number 4, which is gonna be pain because we're
That's fine. I'm tired of seeing them kick off the season as, oh, let's do something original. Giants Cowboys.
Did they
No,
put
that's
us on
not
Thanksgiving
original.
again with the Cowboys?
Yes, we're playing them on Thanksgiving.
Oh my god, why? Why do they keep doing that? I don't want
Because Roger
ruins,
Goodell hates us.
it ruins my Thanksgiving every goddamn year. And we've been barely
Roger
playing it
Goodell
every
hates
year.
us.
Whatever.
Roger Goodell hates the New York
He
Giants.
just hates America. You know what? I was originally gonna take Browns minus 2 and I was gonna originally take Browns minus 2.5, but because both of you are taking the Cowboys plus 2.5, I'm gonna take the Cowboys to fully mush them. So there you go, Dallas.
Yes.
Merry Christmas.
F
All
the
right.
Cowboys.
Exactly. Let's go into the primetime games to round out our week. Sunday Night Football, a playoff rematch, and of course, it has a lot of sentiment with it, with Matthew Stafford once again returning to Detroit as the Rams go on the road to take on the Lions. The Lions are 3.5 point favorites with the over-under 50.5.
Like so many times before, Matthew Stafford will once again lose in Detroit. However, the Lions will be victorious this time around. Lions plus 3.5. Minus 3.5, excuse me.
Okay. Sean?
Yeah, again, I got to agree with Johnson. Yeah, my Lions minus 3.5.
Wow, this is gonna be a horrific week, or it's gonna be the best week ever. There's absolutely nothing in between.
Yeah, there's really nothing in between. I want to be ballsy and take the over. You know what? Screw it. I'm gonna be ballsy and take the over. Why not? We gotta start the season off hot. I think the Lions
Nice.
win this game, but these are two of the best offenses in my opinion in the entire NFL, and I expect Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all these guys to put up a lot of points hopefully for my sake, considering I have guys like Jameer Gibbs and Montgomery and some fantasy leagues, so I kind of need them to put up points. So give me the over for that game. And then rounding out the season, I made the bold prediction that this would be the Super Bowl preview. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Most likely will not be. But the Jets go on the road to Santa Clara, into San Francisco, or Santa Clara, whatever you want to call it at this rate, to take on the 49ers. The 49ers are a 4.5-point favorite, over under 42.5. Now keep in mind, guys, Aaron Rodgers is once again playing on Monday Night Football, and on the opposite side is once again Leonard Floyd. We don't think it's going to happen again, right?
No, it's going to happen
Stranger
week
things
6.
have happened.
Oh,
It's going to happen week 6.
Okay. So what do we got? What do we have for this game?
The under.
Okay,
Under
yeah, the under
42
makes
and a
sense.
half.
What do you
This
have,
will be a
Sean?
game for all this offensive talent that the defenses take over.
Yes.
Yeah, the under
Yes. Yes. Agreed. The under.
two? Okay. I will go with the under, and honestly,
There we go. Mush.
I hold on, because I'm not done yet. This could be my only 2 picker for the week. I am going to go with the Jets to cover the 4.5. I think they lose by a field goal.
Oh,
So-
I can see that happening. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think the Jets lose by a field goal. If you guys looked at and we have our own sleeper pick'em league this year. If you guys looked, there's the tiebreaker for the week is the total amount of points for this game, and I think I had.
I had 42 on the nose, and this is before we released the odds, so 42 and a half is pretty crazy.
I think I put 37. I think I have final score of this game being 20-17 Niners win. It'd be wild if I picked that as my exact score pick for this one, because I almost did that for college. I'm not going to do that, but I think that's how
21-20. One of these teams misses a field goal. Misses an
I
extra
kind of
point.
do. It's kind of weird. I kind of do the same thing like Johnson. I had this at 42, but 42 is my generic pick for any of these total points scored. That just happens to be my go-to. Either that or 42, 44, that's what I go with. But
there's a former 42 that could pitch for the New York Yankees bullpen right now.
But they could use it. They could use it. I saw, like I said to you the other day, I saw a graphic of their bullpen up on the screen, and oh my god, it's atrocious.
It's just not good. I don't want to talk.
It's
about
bad.
It. I don't know why I brought it up.
I almost wanted to do the same as you, Nick, and I just don't have I just can't do it.
No, it's a ballsy pick to take the Jets to cover, because I can see them easily losing by down. But
as much as I want to, I just can't do it.
But yeah, I mean, it should be an interesting week number 1. Any final thoughts you guys have before we wrap this one up?
The only final thoughts I have is, Sean, thank you for coming on the show again. We appreciate it as always. Yeah. We know this is a long one, but it's a good one. So we do appreciate you sitting down, taking time out of your day to join us once again.
Listen, as you guys always know, I enjoy coming on. I love talking football or baseball or whatever sports it is that you got going on, poker even. Well, I got to throw it out there. Andrew's an avid fan.
He is.
But Phil Hellmuth GOAT. But anyway. I'm glad to always come on. I love talking with you guys. I love talking football. It's always a good time. There's always an interesting take or two. The plus to this is this year Grayson's not involved.
Tell us how you really feel.
I just got to let you know.
We appreciate it,
by the way.
We appreciate
it.
Any other thoughts, Johnson or Sean, before we wrap this one up?
Just take us home.
You're
right.
I can't wait for football. That's it.
Home League neighbors, please save me from the disparity of this entire season, because I know it's going to be a bad one.
Yes.
But ultimately, save us to George Sanders. I hope, at least. But knowing my luck, it's going to be Dak Prescott and Bill Belichick, like Johnson wants, because I can't have anything nice in my life.
In prime, I trust.
Yeah, we'll see what he does. Johnson and I previewed that game. They'll come in this weekend. Him and Colorado versus Nebraska should be a fun one upcoming in Lincoln. But yeah, fun. Gonna be a fun 2024-25 season. We'll see if the Chiefs three-peat. Hopefully, for a lot of our sakes, maybe that isn't the case. But for any of the Chiefs fans and the Swifties, they're looking to make sure that is the case for the upcoming season as well.
That's your mother, by the way. She's a Swiftie and a Chiefs fan.
Don't remind me. But let's just cut that from the tape. Cut that from the tape. Anyway, We'll see how all unfolds for this upcoming season. But for all of us here at the All Gas No Break Sports Show, that is going to do it for this week's episode. NFL season is finally upon us, folks. We can celebrate and rejoice as tomorrow night the Kansas City Chiefs will take on the Baltimore Ravens in an AFC Championship rematch to see who will go to 1-0 on this upcoming 2024-25 season. Who will win the Super Bowl? Who will win their respective divisions, as well as maybe who will be the MVP? We'll have to see at the end of the season how all of our picks go, but knowing our luck, it's probably going to go really poorly because it's the mushing hour. It never fails. But as I mentioned, next week, Johnson and I will be back for week number 2 of the NFL, as well as week number 3 of college football preview as we get deeper into this football season. This has been Nicholas Pavone, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson, and for this week, Sean Mulligan with the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week and enjoy your NFL Thursday, Friday, and of course, your NFL Sunday and Monday.